Howdy, y'all. You're listening to the Yak Legion podcast. And today I have a special co host, Brian Smith. How's it going, buddy?
It's great. Fantastic.
Awesome.
Looking forward.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on the show, man. We'll try you out as a host for a while, and we'll see how it goes. And we got Dusty Yakker on the podcast today, man. How's it going, Dusty?
It's going good, man. Greetings, y'all. Good evening. Good morning, wherever you are.
Yeah, we're over here in Ohio, man. So we're not. I don't think we're too far from you.
No, not at all. You're Eastern time, though, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So awesome, man. So I see that you're the 2018 Illinois Kayak League champion, 2017 Michigan Trail champion. I know you just rocked it this past weekend at some Michigan events, man. You want to go into that?
It was a great weekend. I was telling you before that northern Michigan is just a beautiful area. If you're out of Ohio, so people getting up to northern Michigan might not be out of the question at all. It's a great area. It's obviously got huge fish, huge smallmouth, a lot of other species too. But it happened to be the state championship for the Michigan Kayak Trail again. So I really didn't have too good of a season this year on the Michigan Kayak Trail. I got off to a great start with a third place win, but then I bombed a couple tournaments. I actually had a DQ for an early launch I was unaware of for one of the tournaments. But I did manage to qualify for the state championship, which of course was last weekend on Elk and Skagamog Lakes up in my hotel was in Kalkaska. I don't even know what towns those lakes are in. It was like a 20-minute drive from Kalkaska. And it was pretty much on from the moment I got on the lake systems. So it was pretty much a 4-day big smallmouth fest. I did really well in the tournaments.
Nice.
There was a northern Michigan kayak trail tournament that piggybacked on it, so I was able to come in first on that one on Saturday, and then take the 2-day state championship for the Michigan kayak trail, and get the title back. So it was pretty cool, man. I had a great time.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations on that. Man, what got you started kayak fishing? How long you been fishing it?
Well, I mean, I've been bass fishing for quite some time. Ever since I was, a little boy. My dad loved to fish. My uncles loved to fish, even on my mom's side as well. So I pretty much belong to a fishing family. But they would like to fish with bobbers, worms and like live bait and stuff. And I remember my one uncle was pretty rebellious. And he had like plastic worms and stuff, and he would argue with my other uncles about how what one was better, live bait or artificial. So anyways, I got turned on to like Bassmaster and In-Fisherman and artificial lures from my uncle. This was probably when I was like 8 or 9 or 10. I didn't really know what I was doing. And then like 11 or 12, my dad kind of started up with that and actually joined tournaments. And that's kind of like how I got started. He would take me with him. He bought a boat. And, I would just pretty much watch the fishing shows on TV, read the magazines, and try to, fish at all the ponds I could around my house growing up. So that's pretty much how I got to start. But kayak fishing didn't come till like maybe 5 or 6 years ago on my birthday. One day I showed up to the house, and my girlfriend had a little sun dolphin with a bow wrapped around it in the basement, and I thought it was pretty neat. And I went right on the roof of the truck, and I would take it all over to the lakes around here and all over. Pretty cool.
What'd you say, Brian?
I said, did you wife her up?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, did you wife her up?
Yeah. She's not going anywhere.
Sounds like a keeper.
Yeah, sounds like a keeper, man. That's a good life.
Absolutely. I mean, with she's the people on the trail know her because her and the dog are pretty much with me all the time. So she's super supportive.
That's awesome.
So what kayak are you in right now?
Well, it's funny. Using that Sun Dolphin, I was able to win the kayak that I'm in now. I was able to win a Hobie PA at one of the regular season Michigan Kayak Trail events So I'm in a like a camo olive PA12.
Wow, that's awesome, man.
And you just won another kayak, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I won a Jackson Liska, and from what I hear from all the people I know at Jackson, it's a great kayak. It's especially, I guess, a great river kayak.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But I mean, you know, as Team Hobie, it kind of has to go.
Oh yeah, are you on the Hobie team?
Yeah, I'm on the Hobie team. So I mean, it's not like, you know, anybody would be in uproar about it, but I mean, I'm going to be using Hobies for sure.
Gotcha, man. What do you like about the Hobies over the other kayaks? Or have you been in a...
Well, yeah, you know, in all fairness, and to be honest with you, I have basically fished out of that, you know, that the cheap sit-in and Hobies. I really haven't given a fair shake or a lot of time to a lot of the other different brands when it comes to like all day or in a tournament setting or getting my gear set up in it and fishing. So really, my opinion, you know, is pretty subjective. I mean, I've only really, it's limited too. I've only really been in the Hobie, but what I love about the Hobie is everything. It's stability, the pedal drive, how comfortable I fit in it and feel in it. It literally is like an extension of my body out there. And like, you know, when you got that going on, you really don't have to worry about much, and you could pretty much focus on having your bait in the water and fishing as efficiently as you can.
Oh, I love mine. Especially me being a bigger guy, man.
Yeah,
I'm in the Hobie PA12.
Yeah, I'm a skinny guy, so I'm not too wide of a guy, but I'm tall. I'm 6'2", but it doesn't. I mean, I don't really feel tall in there. It doesn't really feel short. Feels pretty comfortable. I'm up in the air about upgrading to a 14. I'm kind of partial to the 12. I'm so accustomed to it. So I mean, I don't know. It's a little more weight consideration and stuff, but.
The 12, man, I've been doing fine with it, man. Storage space on it, you know. There's lots of room on the 12.
Absolutely.
I hadn't really thought about upgrading to the 14 or anything yet, because I think the 12 suits me fine.
Absolutely. It's just, you know, it's one of those things where, like, you know, an extra 2-foot vessel exists, and you know you got a little bit more room in the, you know, in the beam and the side for your rods and stuff. And I'm one of those guys that really likes to have the rods like right there and ready. I don't even have them in the rod holders. I pretty much have them, you know, out the front of the bow, ready to pick up and fish. They go through a beating, man.
So if you like the 12, why deal with the less maneuverability and more weight?
Yeah. There's, like I was saying, there's more practical reasons to say no to it than there are probably to say yeah to it. Like we're saying right now, the 12 pretty much suits my needs, and I'm fairly successful in it, and I'm accustomed to it. My body's accustomed to it, so it's all good. I actually my dealership that sponsors me, Quest Water Sports out of Ottawa, Illinois, that as a Hobie team member, you get a kayak, and I got the 2019 Outback, which I've used on several occasions, and that thing's phenomenal too. So I do have some options.
I like them Outbacks, man.
Yeah,
I think the camo pattern looks sharp as hell, man.
Yeah, that's the one I got. I thought the redesigns for this year were phenomenal, and like kind of pretty much what anglers needed.
They really revamped it this year. I got
absolutely.
in a 2018 Outback because I just bought my kayak in February, and I actually went to a fishing show, a boat show actually here in Cincinnati, and I tested out the 2018 Outback, the 2019 Outback, and the 2019 PA.
Okay. Was that strictly sales?
Yeah, that was a strictly sales. They're set up at the Cincinnati Boat Show.
Okay.
And yeah, man, Brian Tacey, the Taceys there, they're hell of a good people, man.
Yeah, that's what I hear, man.
Yeah, they've been good to me, good to the podcast. You know, they're awesome guys, man. Brian actually gave me a Visi pole a few weeks ago to do as a giveaway, man. That's like a $90 piece of kayaking equipment, you know, and
yeah.
Man, he really goes above and beyond to help out his friends, and he's a good friend to have. Good people, man. His whole family's great.
But
anyway, I got in that 2018, me being a bigger guy, man, I didn't feel real comfortable in the 2018. But then I got in that 19. It's just like
A little better.
so much better, so much better. I ended up going with the PA because I liked the space. It was a little bit more stable with my big butt in there, and I really, really enjoyed it, man.
Yeah, the Outback for me was for skinny water considerations, river tournaments and things like that, places where I might have to consider weight and stuff. But that thing, I mean, that'll handle Lake Michigan, the Outbacks. I mean, my buddies on the team take that out salmon fishing and stuff. So it's a sweet rig, man. It's a very sweet boat. I'd highly recommend that to people looking.
How much lighter is it than the PA?
I think the Outback is 108. No, I think the Outback is 89 pounds. I want to say unloaded, and the PA 12 I think is like 108 or 109. I think I want to say. I might not have those perfect, but I think it's around there.
Yeah,
roughly 20-pound difference.
Yeah. Loaded on the Outback, I think you're looking at 105, 110. Loaded on the PA, you're looking at maybe like 120, 125, something like that. Maybe 130.
Oh wow.
Heavy,
so what? Go ahead, Brian.
I said heavy boat.
Yeah, it is.
I'm right there. I'm right there at that 120 mark with my Predator. I've got a Predator PDL. So I'm right there at the 120 mark, loaded seat and pedal drive.
Yeah,
that's the Old Town Predator.
Yeah, the Old Town Predator. It's definitely not a skinny water boat.
I had a buddy that had the Old Town Predator, and he really enjoyed it. Really sharp looking boat. And I even got in this kayak one day, and I felt pretty good in it. I didn't feel too unstable. The seat was comfortable on it. I like the storage options on it, man. Old Town makes some nice kayaks, that's for sure.
Yeah, one of the cool things about getting out on the trail and going to the different tournaments is seeing people's different setups. Seeing all the different rigs. Yeah. I saw, I can't remember his name, but he was great. He was a great guy. We had a little conversation at the launch ramp. This was at the FLW Cup in Ouachita, and he had a Vibe 120, a Vibe 120 paddleboard with the seat on it that's made for it. A big old crate, a lot of rod holders, a trolling motor with battery, and his gear. And he was doing a good job, man. He was out there, going across the lake. I was pretty impressed with that kind of stuff.
I've seen those rigs where they just take the cooler for a seat, and then you got a nice seat and a cooler with your lunch and drink.
Yeah,
definitely like seeing other setups and getting ideas from others and
totally.
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of doohickeys on kayaks, man. I've seen solar panels on them, sails. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff with kayaks, man. I love it. I love the kayak fishing world.
Yeah, I have a tandem trailer right now, so I it's kind of nice. It's got some T-bars on it too. So if I have to put something else, I actually have one of those Vibe 120 boards that I won sitting in my backyard. So I think I want to make better use of it.
Wow, man. What all fishing trails do you fish?
Well, to be honest with you, this year was probably a little too many, man. I really got stretched thin. It was like weekend after weekend after weekend. I fished, right now I'm fishing KBL, which is the Illinois League, which is the Kayak Bass League. I'm fishing, the Michigan Kayak Trail, or MKT, just wrapped up last weekend with the championship. I fished a lot of the Central Region KBF tournament trails around the Midwest as well, and I made it to a couple Hobie Bass Opens as well. One in Lake Chickamauga in Tennessee earlier in February, and then a heartbreaker over there on Lake St. Clair at the end of June.
I heard that was a beautiful lake to fish, and it was a lot of fun up there.
Oh man, it was a blast. I can't wait to get back. I'm absolutely going to fish the tournaments that are scheduled there for the spring. I'll definitely save my time off of work to plan accordingly, because that's just that's one lake and one that's a window in a lake that you pretty much don't want to miss if you're in the Midwest, or if you're somewhere near, right, or within a reasonable drive, for sure. It's a fantastic smallmouth fish.
I think I'm like 6 hours away.
That's not terrible. That's doable.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you ever been on?
No, I haven't. I had my kids that weekend and couldn't fish, but I watched it. Like Kurt Snitz and some guys like that post a lot of information and pictures, and it just looked like a beautiful lake and a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Hobie Bass events are very exciting to participate in, and they do a great job.
And you don't have to have a Hobie.
No, not at all.
You can still fish the Hobie Bass Opens and not float a Hobie.
Well, that question pops up all the time, man. When you're looking at it on Facebook and you're checking it out and stuff. I mean, you'd be surprised what people say. Do I have to have a Hobie to enter? And I guess it's understandable. It's the Hobie Bass Open, but no, we welcome everybody. It's great.
Definitely. Yeah. Now you did like Midwest KBF tournaments. How'd you do in those?
I did pretty good. I'm sitting third in Angler of the Year right now for the Central region, and I'm sitting 15th in the nation for the Angler of the Year. I've pretty much managed to come in the top 10 in all the tournaments, so those have worked out pretty good. There have been some interesting situations and and scenarios that I fished, like Mark Twain, for example, was down 38 feet or 30 feet, and I didn't really have too much time to practice, and the Mississippi River, all my practice area plans were closed, so I had to kind of do some impromptu stuff. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's fishing, of course. I mean, that's what I love to do. But it's great being able to see these places that you might not otherwise go, and try to figure out the fish on some of these systems that you never seen.
That's what I love about doing these tournament trails, man. They take me to lakes I've never been to before. And even though I've kind of stayed around in Ohio, I do eventually want to do some of the bigger trails to where I could go to Michigan. I can go to, just different places around. I like to do more in Kentucky. I got a coworker that fishes Kentucky lakes, and they just pull out some monster bass, man. He fishes off a bass boat, and I'm really impressed with the bass I've seen come out of Kentucky. I mean, that's awesome, dude. And you mentioned Mark Twain. I had Alan Reed on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Buddy of mine,
he rocked it up there at Mark Twain, man.
He sure did. He did a great job, man. We were talking a little bit about the pattern and big bite that he was on, and it's great. He's got I know right now he's right now he's probably eating dinner, maybe enjoying a cold one, but he's down in the White River in Indiana, getting ready to tear him up at the Hobie Bass Open, man. Or it's not the Open; it's a satellite event, but it's a Hobie event. You can qualify for the Tournament of Champions. So I know he's getting ready down there. I mean, give him. I wish him luck, man. So if he's watching, Alan, if you're watching, man, good luck.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree with you. I've been kayak fishing since 2009, mostly skinny water, and it's the same, 4 or 5 areas. Once I started doing the tournaments, you're going from the far east side of the state to the west side, the north to the south, and you just get to see so much more, meet so many more people, learn stuff from it. It's definitely a great experience.
Yeah, it's truly how you learn, because it sort of forces you to fish and that on that day in those conditions, whatever nature presents. And yeah, like you said, you definitely learn. That's how you learn. You talk, keep your eyes open, you fish with people, you talk at the launch ramps. You chat after the weigh-ins, and word spreads about different techniques and what people do, and in my experience, having 2 or 3 years on the tournament trails, I'm returning to lakes in like similar times of seasons, and it's kind of interesting to see, what these fish are doing with the water temps. And I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years, I've learned probably 5 times more than I had in the previous 20 years combined. I mean, easily.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's great, man. You make a lot of new friends.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like Brian here, man. I met him at Raccoon Creek at a Raccoon Creek event, and it's Raccoon Creek Outfitters. And it was like a pond hopper event. Like you had different lakes we can go to, and then you can also fish the creeks and stuff like that. And man, we, you know, drank some beer the night before and sat around the bonfire. And, you know, I made a whole lot of friends and just sitting back and, you know, just shooting the breeze. And that's one thing I really enjoy about the in-person events. Really over the online events. The online events are fun, but the in-person events, man, you got opportunities to talk to people in person, you know, and meet new people and learn new things, man. They're always a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's like a slice of Americana. You know, it's like kind of like life on the road. It's kind of like, you know, everybody's dream, sort of. You know, when you're doing something that you love, it's that much better.
Yeah, definitely so agree with you on that.
So what's your next tournament? What's your plans now?
Coming up, I have a couple things going on. I have the regional championship, which is on Table Rock Lake. That gosh, I don't know what kind of practice I might be able to get for that. I'd like to go. I'd like to give it a good shot at AOI. So I'm probably going to wind up, you know, figuring that out somehow. I mean, the only thing holding me back is that, you know, I return to work Monday. I'm a teacher, so school starts. So you know, it's a lot different than having, you know, no work. Right. So I got that coming up. I have the Illinois state championship coming up. That's on Otter Lake in southern Illinois. And then there's the Crossroads Classic. I don't know. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. This year, it's kind of a new thing where some of the competing Midwestern kayak groups are sending their top 5 to compete against the other club members' top 5 at Newton Lake. Yeah, it's at Newton Lake in Illinois, and that's I think that's in late September as well. And then, of course, the Trail and Challenge Series Championships for KBF, which is the Mississippi River in La Crosse, one of my favorite places to fish. That's in the middle of October. So there's some juicy stuff coming up, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice, man. Go ahead, Brian.
And I was going to say, the weather's going to start. It's going to start cooling down. You're not going to be sitting there in that 90, 100 degree weather.
Yeah, I went when I was at Lake Ouachita. It was 106 degree heat index.
Yeah.
And then the next weekend, which was last weekend, I went to Michigan, where, you know, I wake up and it's 58. You know, it's like 57, 58 degrees. I'm fishing in 70 degree water. It's so beautiful. And yeah, so the weather is going to start to slowly but surely work its way down, and the big fish are gonna be active. And this is when you can get them.
Oh yeah, buddy. How is the fishing down there in Illinois versus like other places that you go, like when you go up to Michigan?
Hang on, guys. Sorry, I lost you real quick there. Well, you know, to be honest with you, you know, it's no secret. I prefer the fishing in Michigan. You know, there's a few spots, of course, in Illinois that are great. But I mean, living in Chicago, man, I swear, it's kind of tough to be so into bass fishing, because a lot of the lakes worth fishing are like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours away, even like 6. Illinois is a long state, and a lot of the stuff is down south. But being in Chicago also gives me quick access to Wisconsin and Michigan. Right, you know, I can either go up north or go right around the lake, and there's just lots of really nice lakes to fish that are within, you know, 2-3 hours.
Oh wow! Wow. So another question too. You mentioned like you go to these different lakes, and we all go to new lakes we've never been to before. So say you go into a new lake, you've never been to this lake before. You got a tournament coming up. How do you prepare yourself to go to a new lake, and how do you do your research on that lake?
I mean, it's mostly internet stuff. It's mostly Navionics. Most of the lakes that we fish are on Navionics, and of course you could take a good look at the contours. The lake maps in my Garmin unit are awesome. I use that a lot. I do internet research. I scour YouTube. But I mean, as much as you can plan, as much as you could think about it, I mean, ultimately, it really depends on what the water's doing. Like when you get there, I mean, it could be way different than what you think it is, or conditions can turn on a dime. So, to answer your question directly, like how I prepare is a combination of that, like map study, internet research, things like that. Maybe word of mouth stuff. If buddies have fished it, I'll ask them what they might have had success on in the past. But it's kind of a game time decision, and a lot of it boils down to how much time you have with any practice. If you have the luxury of one day, if you have the luxury of 2 days of practice, then you might be able to see what's going on based on what the fish are telling you, and not what maps and internet stuff is. So.
Well, that's awesome, man. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to jump right back into it. So me, Dusty, and Brian, we'll be right back.
What do you guys have any tournaments coming up or anything like that?
Yeah, the Paint Creek event. I'm going to fish it. It's a nice lake, man. Beautiful lake. Cincinnati Kayak Fishing's putting it on. Actually, Brian Tasty runs that trail. And it's not a huge trail. It's a small trail, just around our Cincinnati area. It's a few lakes that we fish. And, man, Paint Creek's a beautiful lake. On the Yak Legion's YouTube channel, me and John Graves went out there and did a bunch of filming. And there's giant rock ledges that come into the water.
Okay.
And you look up, then it's just rocks and rocks and rocks, just huge rocks all around this lake. And you can look at little cracks and crevices and caves in between the rocks and stuff. And, man, it's just the most beautiful lake I've ever been to in our area, to be honest with you. And it's a real treasure to go up there.
Did you guys fish?
Nice fish.
No, go ahead.
I said they got nice fish there too. Paint Creek is a nice fishery.
Oh yeah, it can be tough, especially this time of year, as hot as it is. All those rocks heated up. They get hot, and early in the season, fishing those rocks can do really good. But I'm still learning that lake, to be honest with you. I've only fished it a few times, but man, I've done pretty decent every time I've been out there fishing. I hadn't caught any giants yet. 13s, 15s. I think 15's my biggest fish out of there, and so there's giants in there, I'm sure, and
they're pretty hard to get. Yeah,
there is people that catch them, but I think there's a lot of people that fish that lake a lot, and they know that lake, and a lot of those guys are probably going to do really good in this tournament. Of course, anytime you go to a lake and you're fishing against somebody that's a local, that knows that lake really well, it could be really challenging.
Yeah, I know, but you also have to take into consideration that sometimes it's really hard to win on your home lake too.
Yeah.
People have the curse of fishing their home lake sometimes. But yeah, I know what you mean, man. It's hard to compete against inside knowledge sometimes.
So, what kind of fisherman are you? What do you tend to throw the most? Are you a topwater guy? Are you a crankbait guy? I mean, or do you just do a little bit of everything?
You know what? For so long, I was definitely a jig guy. I'm still a jig guy. It's still my first choice. I still always have a tied on. 3/8 or ½ ounce. Pumpkin seed, black and blue jig, pumpkin orange. So I mean, that's probably what I'd fall back on for the answer. But really, over the last couple of years, I think that might be changing. I don't know that I could call myself, one particular thing, but I throw a lot of vibrating jigs. I throw a lot of chatterbaits. I swim a jig a lot. I do throw a lot of top waters. And I do get into finesse as well with drop shots and Nikos and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'd probably a jig. If I had one lure to fish for the rest of my life, it would definitely be a jig.
I started using the Nico this year, and man, I hadn't caught a lot of fish on it yet. You got any tips for using the Nico?
Well, yeah, get yourself, a good hook. Get yourself, a good screw-in NACO weight. Maybe experimenting with some small skirts on the weight sometimes is an attractor for fish. and get yourself a good soft plastic that stands. You know, that has some action. You know robo worms are good. There's a Japanese company called Nori's that they make specialty worms for Neko. Yamamoto and Daiwa released a real soft plastic Neko worm. I have a package of those. Those tend to work really nice. There's plenty of options out on the market, but good soft worm, and a nice small sharp hook like an owner number 1 or something like that.
How do you tend to work those baits, the Neko?
Real subtly, real slowly and real subtly. It's not something that I've had a lot of success on working fast and hopping it. I tend to like to Neko rig the crayfish. There's a particular one that I really like to rig. I think it stands up with big fat pincers and is super attractive. So it's not only worms that you Neko rig. I've had a lot of success with craws, but just real slowly. A good rod is good too. Something with action and light enough for you to toss it and feel it, because sometimes I experiment with weights because the fall and the action is all determined by that. So you want a rod that can handle some small weights, and you just kind of want to work it slow, and the hits come, kind of like they do on a tube or a jig. They'll pop it, and since you have an exposed hook most of the time, you just reel and let the force of the fish set the hook and hope you get it in.
Yeah. What rod and reel combo do you use with it?
Right now I'm using a Stratic, Shimano Stratic, with a St. Croix Mojo 610 medium light rod. So that's what I'm using for my Neko setup currently. And it works really well.
Wow.
Sounds nice. Nice.
Definitely. I started using that chatterbait this year, and I fished it a little bit last year, and I've been using the Z-Man, the basic chatterbait, like the cheap one. I hadn't bought the $20 one, the hammer, I think that's what it's called.
Oh, yeah, the jackhammers?
Yeah, the jackhammer. I've heard a lot of good things about that. And but I've done pretty good. Just a black and blue. Here in Ohio, at least in my area, we have a lot of real murky lakes. We don't have a lot of clear water. A lot of the lakes I fish, especially in the early spring when it's rainy, it's muddy a lot of times. We have a lot of dark, muddy lakes, and that black and blue and that chatterbait, man, they're really good on those muddy lakes.
Yeah, and in that muddy water, it's surprising how dark colors like just straight black or black and blue work really good. And of course, in muddy water, the vibration is key. So a chatterbait or a vibrating jig in that muddy water, man, is definitely something I throw, and have a lot of success with it too. On the national championship this year, it was coffee water where I was fishing, and I was tossing the jackhammer up into 10 inches of water, along seawalls, and just kind of ripping it, and these fish were just hammering it. Muddy water. Yeah.
Wow, man.
Very cool. Very cool. But
chatterbaits are good baits to throw, man. They'll catch you some fish.
Oh yeah.
Lately, I've been getting a lot of hits on my spinners.
Like spinner baits or inline spinners?
Yeah, just spinner baits.
Yeah.
Every now and then I put a trailer on there. It doesn't really seem to matter if I have a trailer or I don't have a trailer. I get the same amount of hits on it.
Well, the funny thing about the spinnerbait is I think we were just talking about chatterbaits, and with the popularity of the chatterbaits over the last decade, to some people, spinnerbaits have sort of taken a back seat, but it's a great bait. I've been using a spinnerbait for 25 years and having, a lot of success with it. So definitely don't put them away. They're super versatile too, shallow, deep.
Yeah, we just did some skinny water, and I used a lot of cranks like Rebel weed calls and stuff like that. Wasn't getting any action out of them, and put a little spinner on there and just started slaying them. Yeah,
it's a good bait.
You used the TRD, the Ned rig?
I do. That's something I hadn't really used a lot of in the past. A lot this year, I've used it. I like a lot of Z-Man products. I mean, I think that that Elastec stuff really lasts a lot. It's a pretty durable bait. I kind of like the concept. They got a lot of cool designs, especially some new ones for this year. And I've seen it point blank catch big fish and win tournaments. So, especially fishing the Michigan kayak trail, a lot of those guys out there are deadly with the Ned and other finesse techniques. So it's definitely something I have to have in my back pocket for sure.
The thing about those Z-Mans, you don't want to keep those with the other soft plastics.
Oh no. Yeah,
Because it melts
I've learned the hard way.
And you take one of them Z-Mans, like an old beat up one, you know, it takes a long time for a Z-Man to get beat up that way. But stick that on a fire or set fire to it. That thing will burn for 10 minutes. Yeah. We had a cross sitting on a log, man, and it burnt a hole through the log. It just kept burning. I don't know what they're using to make them things.
Yeah, I'll stick to just trying to catch fish with them for sure. They're a good bait.
Oh, definitely, man. Definitely. So yeah, man. So every podcast will go into this. I do a fishing scenario game. So this is where I'll give you 3 fishing scenarios. The third one's kind of silly, kind of funny. And you just best describe, you know, how you would go about fishing these scenarios. You know what I mean?
Yeah, whatever.
So say you're going to Lake St. Clair and it's in the fall.
Okay.
All right, so you're going maybe late fall. You got cold nights where the water is cooling down, but the days are still kind of warm. How do you go about fishing that and finding the fish?
Well, in St. Clair could be tricky. It's a lot about movement. I know they follow baitfish around. It doesn't have to be St. Clair for smallmouth to follow baitfish around. With smallmouth, that's pretty much the name of the game. So, maybe outside of a few specific lure choices that I'd go with, like rattle traps and crankbaits, and jerk baits, definitely, things like that. I first would try to locate the fish. What I would do is just kind of pop my side scan on, and the funny thing about that question is that, as I've never been there in the fall. Actually, Lake St. Clair it was my first time only this year, so I was able to fish it like 2 or 3 times this year. But it was in the spring and early summer, so I've never been out in the fall. But to answer your question, I would try to find the bait fish. If I found a lot of bait fish in the 8 to 12 foot depths, I'd probably focus in that. And you know, you can fish 200 or 300 yards from the shoreline. To get out just a little deeper, you probably have to go up maybe a mile or 2 out and fish slightly deeper water, and maybe look for any scattered weed beds or something like that, and just roam around until you find bait fish or until you mark fish. And usually where you catch one, you catch another. So I'd probably do that. Or go directly to the mouth of the river, the mouth of the Detroit River right there, which is always a seasonal spot, whether it's the beginning or end of the year.
Wow, good answer, man.
Yeah,
you want to do the next one, Brian?
No, you got this. I had one, but you already asked the question. I was gonna say, if you had was given one rod, one lure, and one way to fish, what would you do? And he said that his jig was his kind of go-to.
Yeah.
So
that's definitely what I would do. I would want it. I mean, if it was only one rod, I'd probably want it medium heavy, not too heavy, so I might be able to do other applications with it. I mean, probably, and then just a nice reel somewhere in the in the 7s, a Shimano Chronarch or something like that, and I'd probably fish a jig. I could rip it on the surface. I could swim it underneath the surface. I could hop it on the bottom, and stuff like that. So that probably. I mean, and the funny thing about that is that's pretty much the rod I had for 4 or 5 or 6 years in my car with me the whole time, and I had a tackle box with maybe 10 or 15 lures and a handful of terminal tackle and some plastics, and that was pretty much my tackle that I took. So I had fun with this.
Well, that kind of go ahead.
What about fishing? How do you determine what type of fishing line you're going to use with what lure or rod?
So, what's the question again? How do I determine what?
The type of fishing line you're going to use.
Oh, fishing line.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much a fluorocarbon guy. I love a lot of the fluorocarbon. This year I've really developed a love for FC Sniper and the FC Crank and Sunline. So I do have fluorocarbon on a bulk of my reels. I do put braid to fluoro leaders on my spinning stuff. So on my spinning gears for like drop shots and wackies, or the NACO stuff, or small tubes, things like that, my finesse stuff, I'll have 16 pound braid, and my leaders will go anywhere from 12 pound to 6 pound. And on my top water rod, I like to use mono because I get buoyancy that way. And with fluoro, sometimes that stuff sinks, and you kind of got to, it kind of just manipulates the action of your lure. So I like to use a lot of mono. I mean, if it's spooled up with fluoro or in a pinch, it's no big deal. But mono for top waters, cranking line for my cranks and jerk baits, and the other stuff I mentioned for my spinning stuff. But predominantly fluorocarbon.
Wow, great answer, man.
Yeah.
So here's scenario number 2. Here in Ohio, we have a place called AEP, and it's a bunch of strip mines. So there's probably there's thousands of acres of woods, and there's all these strip mine ponds that are scattered around the area. A lot of them you can access from the road, and you can easily drag your kayak, and some of them you got to hike to.
Yeah.
So say if you were going to go out there with a backpack and a rod and reel, maybe a couple rods, just something that you can carry by hand and walk pond to pond to pond to fish, what would you bring? How would you go about fishing those ponds?
Well, I'd probably bring a rod that's like medium or medium heavy, and I would spool it with 10-pound line, and I would have a handful of tungsten finesse jigs. Tungsten because you get a little smaller profile for the weight, and you can kind of feel what's going on in the bottom a little better. You can kind of discern different like spots or different rock piles, and kind of what bottom you're dealing with a little better, or cover that you're running into. And I'd also bring a medium or medium light spinning outfit with a NACO rig or wacky worm or drop shot. And strip mines tend to be clear water, so I'd probably kind of downsize my line, or whatever I probably can get away with the least, and I'd probably work the deeper portions of the strip mines, like bluff walls or any big steep drops or deeper rock piles.
Wow, man. Good answer.
Okay.
So we'll do number 3, right? This is going to be a little silly. George Lopez calls you on the phone. Said, "Hey, Dusty, come down to Mexico and fish those big green fish down here in Mexico." So George Lopez invites you down to Mexico, man. You can bring one kayak, you can bring rods and reels, whatever you want to do, man. What do you bring into Mexico to go fishing with George Lopez?
I think I would want to bring a couple Outbacks, and I would like the new 360 drives that Hobie has, and I would probably no matter who you're fishing with, if you take a friend fishing, a buddy fishing, or someone that hasn't fished in a while, if there's any remote possibility of getting them on top waters where they could just throw a plug out and just work a bait in on top and get them maybe out in the dawn or the dusk and get a top water in their hands, it's a great thing. And I would probably bring a couple top water rods with some big old top water plugs on it, maybe some walkers or something, and try for some peacock bass or some big bass, or I don't know, some tarpon or something like that.
Oh yeah, man! My uncle used to go to Mexico and fish for the marlin down there.
Yeah, the marlin.
Go offshore, man. I remember as a kid walking into his den. He had a man cave downstairs. He had a huge freaking marlin on the wall, man. This thing was like 6-7 feet long, man. Probably longer than that. It was huge when I was a kid. Well, and that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and in Mexico, I can't think of the names of the reservoirs off the top of my head, but I mean they have numerous places where you can go fish for 14, 15, 16-pound bass, and they're not uncommon to catch them. It's like super common to catch 8, 9, 10, and 11-pound bass daily. They got places down there for sure. People throw big worms, and you just there's resorts down there and stuff. It's kind of been one of my bucket list items to go do that. So hopefully maybe in the next couple, 2-3 years, I could look into something like that.
I got some friends I've made through Yak Legion podcast, and they're Mexican anglers down there in Mexico. Man, they catch a big bass. It's very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, you have any more questions, Brian?
Well, yeah, I kind of wanted to talk to you about your last tournament.
Okay.
I read your post, and you said you kind of got on them with one specific lure, one presentation, and one color, and you actually it gave some of that information to a buddy you were fishing with, and he got onto it too.
Yeah, it was yeah.
I was kind of interested in what the presentation was and the lure and how you figured that out.
Sure. Well, I was marking bait fish deep, and they would roam anywhere between 16 to 20 to 30 feet, even out to 55 feet. And sometimes you couldn't find them, and then sometimes they'd come back in. And as you're scanning with side scan, you see them, and you turn in one direction, you can find more clusters and more bait balls. So I knew I had to get a bait down deep. So I chose a crankbait. I tried to find a crankbait with the smallest body and the biggest lip I had. So I was able to find that in a bandit crankbait, and it was like a white crankbait, kind of a sexy shad pattern, and I was able to get it down to 15 and 17 foot depths with 10-pound line and a lot of line out, and that was a trick that caught a lot of the big fish.
And is that what you got your PB on?
It is. Yeah, it is. That's what it hit. It's funny because a huge catfish hit my bait, and it was enormous, and it was taking forever to get in. But I played it as best I could with the drag really loose because that was the only crankbait I had, and that was the one they were hitting. So I didn't want that. I didn't want that dude taking it, man.
Okay. Very
and
cool.
Something else when you hook into a big carp or a catfish when you're bass fishing, and there for a second you're thinking, "Man, I got the biggest bass in the whole lake."
Man, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and for a few seconds I did think that, but then it became obvious that it wasn't a bass. It was, I thought it was a muskie actually, because they have big muskie in there too.
Wow, man. So something I ask all our guests, what's a crazy fishing story, man? You got something that's either sad, tragic, happy, something really funny? Like, what's a really good fishing story that comes to your mind?
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's probably several that would be better for me to tell at this point, but what pops in my head is kind of funny. I mean, it's one of those deals where you had to be there and you had to see the expression on his face and things like that. But when I was a boy, it was hard for me to get on the boat because we would often they would often take the kids and the families to resorts in Wisconsin, and we would have these long drives, 6-8 hour drives up to northern Wisconsin, and my dad and his brothers and my grandfather and stuff, they'd all want to get on the boat, and I would beg and beg and beg and beg to get on the boat, and I could never get on the boat. And like go out at night, it was my dream to go out then, but I was, they told me I wasn't allowed, so I can never go out. So it was at a place like that. I was about, I don't know, maybe 6 years old, something like that, and maybe 7 years old, something like that. And of course, I begged them to go out on the water, and they wouldn't let me. And they all went out, and then about 45 minutes later, you heard the motor again, and that was kind of odd because normally they were gone all night. I'd sleep. I wouldn't see them for the morning. And you heard the motor again. You heard kind of a fuss and like a ruckus. And in they come in the cabin, but sticking out of my grandfather's head is a giant musky lure, man. It was funny because it was buried in his head. He had his hat on, and he was smoking a cigarette. Casual as shit, like nothing ever happened. Just hanging out of his mouth and stuff. And apparently, the story goes is that my dad was the one who was casting and snagged him in the head, and they had to like beg him to go in and drive an hour and 30 minutes to the hospital because he just wanted to cut the line and keep fishing. He's like, look, man, we're out here. We just got here. It's an hour and a half to the hospital. Who knows if we even open or if they have an emergency room. So he just wanted to snip the line and keep fishing. And that was my mother's father on my mother's side, and he sort of lives in infamy for that toughness. And apparently, they were at the hospital with them, and he's sitting in the ER with the giant lure in his head. But there's no pictures, unfortunately. But the story is pretty funny, and it was kind of funny seeing him there in the hallway like that.
That's funny, man. That's a good one.
So I guess the desire to fish, the desire to not quit, is run somewhere in the genes. Because when I'm out there in tournaments, I just grind to the end. I really don't quit, and just kind of want to be out there.
Wow, man, that's awesome. That's a fun story, man. Definitely. Yeah. So I guess we'll wrap this up. I try to keep these about 45 minutes to an hour. You got any sponsors you want to shout out?
Yeah, of course. I always want to give thanks to the good people over at Yakker. I want to recognize the potency at Kitech baits, man. They work really good. I'm glad to be on the team. Hobie Fishing, of course. I'm so looking forward to the 360 drive to get on one of those, perhaps this year, probably next year. And I love the support they give me and their generosity. I want to give a giant shout out to Catch Products and Catch USA, Duke Westcamp and crew over there. The amount of support that they give their anglers is unprecedented, I think, and he's up to a lot of really impressive things. So I'm glad to be on board with them, and I think I don't think I'm forgetting anybody.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Oh, I'm sorry. I want to give a shout out to Lee's Global Tackle out in Elk Grove Village. John Moy over there at Lee's Global Tackle takes care of my needs and hooks me up with all types of crazy stuff. So
that's awesome, man. You have any more questions, Brian, for Dusty before we get off here?
One quick one.
Yeah.
Say you meet a guy, he's just starting out. What would be like the most important recommendation you would give a new guy?
Does the person want to start out just to get into a kayak and fish, or to get into a kayak and tournament fish?
No, tournament fish. Like he just showed up at his first tournament. He's looking for recommendations from other guys like us that have done it for a little while. Or what would be the first?
Yeah, well, sure. First and foremost, have fun. I myself have a tendency to take it a little too serious. I'm very competitive. Sometimes I have to remind myself that this is, like sort of the time of your life. These are the memories that you're really going to have when you're much, much older, and that you're doing something that you really love and enjoy. So have fun with it, So try to make sure to know that you're in the experience all the time, and to sort of soak it up, and to smile, and to meet people, and to be friendly, and to have a lot of fun. I'd also, number two is, if you want to be competitive, you should, people are going to hate me for saying this, but you should probably get a pedal drive kayak, even though I know that they're not budget friendly, and they're not in everybody's budget. The reality is that, they're relatively expensive.
But if you keep your eye out, you can find them.
Yeah. On the used market for sure.
Not even used. I got mine new in the store for $1,500 at the beginning of the year.
I know, but even and that's a great price, but even $1,500 could be daunting sometimes for a beginning angler and stuff. Because I hate to say, I don't mean to insinuate that you need a pedal kayak to be competitive. I won a Hobie in a Sun Dolphin. Without electronics. You can do it, but for someone just starting out that kind of wants to get into it, maybe be competitive, I think a pedal drive kayak is probably more conducive to it. And to do your homework, and to try to really put a lot of time in with maps and the internet, and kind of keeping your eyes and ears open when you're talking to other people on the water too, to sort of soak it up any way that you can.
You ever use a trolling motor or a torpedo?
Well, I haven't. I've not personally done that. I've been on a kayak and sort of demoed it briefly. But I've never personally used one, and I'm I've more than entertained the idea of getting set up with one for next year. Sometimes, like I mentioned, I have a lot of time in the summer. Sometimes I get practice days, 2 or 3 practice days. But what winds up happening is that pedaling miles and miles and miles puts a toll on your body. So by the time Saturday and Sunday rolls around and you're done with your tournament, you're just physically spent. So I think the Torqeedo, would not only help me with that, but would certainly, help you get around from A to B and be strategic that way.
Awesome. Well, great, man. I appreciate you coming on the show, Dusty. I really do.
I appreciate you having me.
Oh, and it's been fun doing the co-host there with Brian. I think we hit it off pretty good, man. We make good teams, so we're going to keep it rolling, man. And I'm going to get this. I'm going to have this episode come out on Monday, so be on the lookout for it, man. And maybe we'll have you again on again someday, man.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for the invite, and we'll talk to you guys soon, man.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night, boys.
Thanks for listening, guys.
All right. Take care.
Have a good night.